Hi, I'm Jody Brown, and I did my presentation on dehumanization of prison environments. I was interested in doing this topic from reading about the Stanford prison experiment in our textbook. So, prison environments can be a source of dehumanization, as we saw in the Stanford prison experiment. Just the environment of the prison causes dehumanization, as well as the way that prison guards look at the prisoners as inmates and not looking at them as individuals. There are many conditions of prisons that are very poor and not typical human standards. As you can see in this picture, sometimes they're very dirty, very small, uncomfortable environments where they have to live, and there is also poor health care. There's limited outdoors time, and when they are outdoors, it's caged areas that have chain link fences, and they usually have like electric fence at the top to keep them from escaping. A lot of prisons, in order to cut down on budget, have overcrowded bunks or cut down on costs to fit the budget. They stuff more prisoners into a smaller living space, and solitary confinement is definitely the most dehumanizing because they have no interaction with other people. People go crazy, and they have even worse conditions, and as far as the food and um, being treated poorly by the guards. So the Stanford prison experiment, again, is what was gone over in our book. Became a legendary landmark study of dehumanization in prison environments. Basically, they took young, healthy college students as volunteers, and sorry, my mind just went blank. And they arrested them like in typical procedure, like sorry. They arrested them and handcuffed them, blindfolded them, took them in and stripped them down and got them fingerprinted in order to give them the actual prison experience. And even though the volunteers playing the guards were only told not to be violent, they weren't given any specific instructions on how to treat the prisoners. They assumed their roles fairly easily as guards, in the sense of that they treated them not like humans and treated them poorly, and it was affecting the guards in the situation too. So as we read in the book, again, the experiment was supposed to go on for 2 weeks, but they had to end it after 6 days because of because of how harsh the psychological effects were. Sorry, on the prisoners. They were screened for being normal, healthy, mentally stable people, and they were getting very anxious and depressed and having nervous breakdowns. So it was a really negative experience, even just after 6 days. But it furthered the theory that prison environments are dehumanizing, and even just the experience of a normal, healthy person is bad, but let alone prisoners that have gone through stuff in their past before being arrested, that have had trauma, violence. Those negative things can just be further exacerbated in prison. So this case, Brown versus Plato, was a landmark class action lawsuit heard by the Supreme Court. California prisoners are basically saying that they didn't get adequate health care in prison, and it violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. Even though they are prisoners, they should still have human dignity and be treated as human beings. So Justice Kennedy asserted that prisoners retain the essence of human dignity inherent in all persons, and agreed that respect for that dignity um, is in the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. So they shouldn't be subjected to inadequate health care and meant to suffer more than just the normal prison experience. So another interesting thing that I found in my research was these two psychologists described six mechanisms of dehumanization in medicine, that are very relevant to the present context, not only in healthcare but in the whole present context. De-individualization, they aren't treated like individuals, they're all looked at as inmates, just another statistic. Sorry. Suppression of agency and autonomy, basically is not treating them as human beings with agency. Intergroup dissimilarity, mechanization, objectification, and moral disengagement. They're not treated as human beings and therefore more treated like objects, as well as the guards have moral disengagement because of treating them as objects. They don't treat them with the same morality that they would treat normal human beings. So Hack and Waits proposed 6 fixes for these problems. Individualization, treat them as individuals with agency, and just basically like making sure that you're treating them as human beings when you select their physicians, making sure that they have adequate minimum health care that they need, and treating them with morality like you would a normal human being. So there's a lot of prior life situations that affect inmates. A lot of people that are arrested for drug use or drug trafficking have or are people that are addicted to drugs, so they have negative withdrawal from the drugs when they go into prison because they're not allowed to have the drugs when they're in prison. There can be a lot of traumatic situations that cause people to commit crimes because they needed money. They ended up homeless and committed a crime to try to stay alive. Mental illness can be a contributing factor to committing a crime and can, again, just be exacerbated in prison environments, not only because of the dehumanization and objectification that's happening, but also from getting inadequate health care. And abuse and domestic violence, or any kind of violence, is a big one because they, again, have these traumatic experiences and have PTSD sometimes, and then they come into a environment where, as we saw in the Stanford prison experiment, is dehumanizing and really harsh environment for even a normal person, let alone someone who has prior trauma and stress in their life. So there was another study that studied the coping mechanisms of stress and strain in prison environments. 3 types of strain in a prison environment are failure to achieve positively valued goals. Even though a lot of inmates have jobs in prison, they're not typically like having opportunities to learn and grow and do jobs that they want to do, like you can in the real world. Presentation of noxious or negative valued stimuli. So a lot of the times they're just negatively reinforced as opposed to having positive reinforcements of things in life. And that's what I just said, the loss of positively valued stimuli. So coping mechanisms that are popular in prison environments in the study were revenge and retaliation, deflecting blame, and then a very few of them accept a responsibility for their actions. So in conclusion, there are many problems in modern prisons that cause dehumanization. As we talked about, there's overcrowding, there's understaffing in prison guards, and, and poor healthcare, all in an attempt to save money, poor nutrition. There's lack of mental health support and counseling for those that are mentally ill. Dehumanizing environment can cause or exacerbate already present mental health issues and strain, especially those who have been struggling before prison. And the criminal justice system needs an effective way to punish those that break the law, but it shouldn't come at the cost of them not being treated as human beings. And there's are all of the references and studies that I did in my report. Thank you.